Sorry you had to see that.
Yes, that's right. We are talking about the king of pop himself, and more specifically, the new musical biopic, Michael. I used to not be a fan of musical biopics or biopics based on historical musical figures, whatever you call it. But the past few years have really changed my mind. With movies like Bohemian Rhapsody, Elvis, A Complete Unknown, and now Michael, they have really upped their game. And Bohemian Rhapsody was probably my favorite in recent years, and those are the same makers of Michael, so I decided we gotta go to the theater. Michael follows the life of singer Michael Jackson from a young age when he was part of the Jackson 5, all the way through Thriller, and into the Bad Days tour in the late 1980s. And really it focuses on Michael and trying to break away from his dad, or as everyone seems to call him, Joseph. I mean, that is his name, but all his kids call him Joseph. Kind of feels like a general thing, like Joseph. I don't know, just come on, just let them call you dad. But it really focuses in on the drama between Michael and Joseph wanting to control and Michael wanting to break free. So before you watch any further, I'll just let you know how I feel. This movie worked. This movie was great, and it definitely doesn't deserve all the negative publicity it's been getting. And hopefully by the end of this, you want to go see this movie too. And if you already have seen it, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you thought. Whether you agree or disagree, I'd love to hear, and it really does help the channel. The first thing that works about this movie is Jafar Jackson. He portrays Michael Jackson, but the coolest part is Jafar is Michael's nephew. I mean, how cooler does it get than that? Wait, let me try that again. Pretty dang cool. In this movie, Jafar embodies everything that made Michael. The talking, the singing, the dancing. And just side note, since I didn't grow up really a lot with Michael Jackson, it took me a bit to get used to the, "Hey guys, I'm Michael Jackson." The high voice. I mean, I got used to it, but he really talked that high. Me and my friends when we were young and jerks always said, oh, it's because he has a small nose, it collapsed. No, he just naturally had a high voice, which helped him have a great singing voice. And you might think this is nepotism, but Jafar earned the role of Michael. He spent 2 to 3 years of intense training, rehearsals, study to fully embody everything his uncle was. Even Michael's own son said when he saw him, it felt like he was seeing his own father again, and he wanted to cry.
The first time was really an emotional shock because I had not seen my father in a long time, and it was difficult to maintain and keep composure.
So although it's hard to beat Jafar Jackson in playing the main character of Michael, I'd say the other one that really stood out was Coleman Domingo playing Joseph Jackson. You know, he really was the villain in this movie, and I liked it because a lot of biopics always present the singer or the musician as their own villain and all this internal trauma, which I'm sure Michael went through a lot of. Well, obviously we know he went through a lot of trauma. We see it in this movie. We know about other things that happened later on. But I like that Michael was the one trying to break away from the trauma and the villain, which was his father, or I mean, Joseph. Sorry, I just gotta get it all in my system. You know, I'm feeling pretty pop myself. But Coleman Domingo, this movie spans over 20 years, and we see him age. We see the changes, which hands off to the prosthetics team, obviously, but his acting is really what made it feel alive. He felt so authentic. It made me really not like him. I wanted to slap this guy in the face multiple times, and that's how you know someone's doing a good job. And the tension between Jafar and Coleman in this movie, they knew how to bring it out. And then there's the story. Of course, with any movie or biopic, they left things out. They might have dramatized certain events, but I really liked how it really just focused on the first half of Michael's career up through the late 80s. And we see him go through trauma as a child. We see how this life of fame impacts child stars, especially when their dad is a tool like Joseph. And I never realized all this about Michael Jackson, but man, he didn't really have any friends growing up. His animals were his friends, which you might want to make fun of. I get to a point because when I was younger, I loved my dogs, loved my horses. For me, in a way, they were my friends, but I still had real life friends. So luckily I didn't become an awkward person. And I'd say Michael is the king of pop. He's awesome, but he was awkward in ways. He was nervous. He's insecure because of the crap he had to go through that this story really shows. From the physical and mental abuse by his father, but that led to him wanting to change his face, which led to other issues down the road. And apparently he almost died with his hair caught on fire, burned right through his scalp. That's not really... That sucks. One of the biggest critiques I'm seeing that I just disagree with is that they didn't show the sexual allegations against Michael Jackson. We're not going to dive too deep into that. I'm sure many of us know the story. But the thing is, this movie literally stops in 1988 or something, and the allegations weren't until 1993. So what are you even critiquing? And at the end of the movie, it says his story continues, so we might get more. And I'm sure we will see those darker, more sad times of Michael's life, which... yeah, I want to see on the big screen, but this movie, it wasn't the focus, and that's okay. As far as the last few things I liked before we get into what could have been better, the prosthetics were amazing. I mean, they made Jafar look like Michael. I don't know how. Maybe they used some CGI, but it looked just so good. The visuals were stunning. It was bright. It was fun. And then the stage time where he's on stage performing, That was actually Jafar. The dancing was him. And even more impressive to me was the singing. He sounded like Michael. I guess no one can ever perfectly sound like Michael because he was so good, but Jafar just near perfected it. I was a little worried, maybe 2/3 of the way through the movie. I'm like, I like it, but I really just wanted more singing time with him on stage, seeing him perform. We got a lot of that at the end. So there's a beginning, middle, and end where we see him performing. My worries went away. And also, this is like a family movie. I don't mean as in families can go watch it, which, yeah, sure they can. But he had brothers helping produce it. His son was a producer. Obviously, his nephew played him. So the whole family came together to try to give us a good story. Now, for what could have been better, and for most movies, there's always something. First of all, doesn't take away from the story or anything, but the CGI moments. So we see Michael's animals. He's a huge fan of animal. He basically had his own zoo. They didn't actually use any real animals. It was all CGI, and I don't really get why. Maybe because it's hard to train an animal to do what you want. Maybe it's because they're moving away from that because some might see it as not good in the movie industry. But we see him get a baby chimpanzee in the movie, and it's all CGI, and it just looked very CGI. There's a giraffe. And then the weirdest one, we see just the head view of a llama. Couldn't we just video the side of the llama? We don't need to train him. Just show a real llama and Michael talking to it. But no, it's CGI again. And it looked just not great. But the worst part was, do you know those straight to the Sci-Fi Channel or straight to TV movies where there's a fire scene and it definitely looks like someone got on Photoshop that maybe knew what they were doing and for straight to TV release made some cheesy, kind of decent looking fire. When he has the whole situation with his hair on fire, I was just watching it going, wow, this movie has a $200 million budget, but we couldn't just, put a little extra time on the flames. But those are my smallest critiques. Not a big deal. The bigger one was the pacing. And the pacing actually wasn't that bad. My issue was the movie was only 2 hours and 8 minutes. And for films like this, like a biopic, I'm okay with sitting in the theater for another half an hour. Give me a 2.5 hour movie, maybe a 2 hour, 40-minute movie. I know a lot of you were like, Zach, we don't want to sit there longer than we have to. Come on. Well, fair for you guys, but I think it just brings out a better story. In this movie, for what they did for 2 hours and 8 minutes, I think the pacing was fairly decent, but it definitely was cruising on through. Here's a moment in his life. Here's a moment. And it just kind of, whew. I just wish they could have slowed down and focused a little more on a few moments. I was surprised when it ended. It just kind of felt like, whoa, that came quick. And I found out why. Apparently, the original cut of this movie had a whole nother third at the end, and they cut all of it out. Apparently, it did get into the sexual allegations. It did show some more dark times. And at times, it feels like, Michael and Joseph, we moved on from it. He broke free, and they keep going back. Part of me is wondering if some of those moments that feel a little off are because they cut a lot of stuff out of the movie and tried to restructure it in a way. But it was still a great film. I just wanted it a little longer. And I think at times you can feel it's a little, but overall, it's still great. In the end, this movie worked. I really enjoyed it. I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10. If you're a fan of music, I'd go check it out. But as always, thank you for the time. Join me in the bathroom. Come back for more.